The biting winds of late autumn swept through the gaps in the old ironwood doors, carrying the sharp, bone-chilling cold characteristic of the northern delta. Yet in Dai Bai village, the atmosphere was as stifling and hot as midsummer. Crimson furnaces blazed day and night without cease, the rhythmic clang of hammers and metal blending with the acrid stench of burning coal and the thick, suffocating smell of molten copper. It created a suffocating, almost unbreathable space. Inside the Phan family's grandest estate, young Master Kiem stood, directing the workers before a massive furnace. Kiem was the eldest son of Phan Tich, groomed to inherit the ancestral trade. His robust physique, healthy bronzed skin, and strong, swift movements made him Phan Tich's pride and joy. But today, the copper in the main furnace was strangely defiant. The temperature soared to such extremes that even the most seasoned workers had to retreat, sweat pouring from them as if they'd just bathed. Yet the copper in the crucible remained stubbornly viscous, refusing to flow freely into the molds. Kiem, visibly annoyed, bellowed, "What kind of work is this? Pump more air? It's just a pot of copper, and you've been at it since morning." The furnace worker nervously replied, "Master, we've already stacked it full, and the bellows are pumped to bursting, but it's strange. The copper resists, like something is holding it back." Kiem grunted, taking a long pole and thrusting it into the furnace to check. The moment the pole touched the swirling, bubbling metal, a sudden cloud of greenish-hot vapor erupted, striking Kiem directly in the face. He staggered, tripped, and collapsed onto the sooty floor. The horrified workers rushed to carry him inside. Phan Tich, sipping tea, dropped his cup in shock when he saw his son being brought in. Kiem lay on the wooden bed, breathing shallowly, wheezing like an asthma patient. The most terrifying thing was that his skin had begun to change. From its healthy, tan bronze, it slowly turned a dull yellow. Not the yellow of liver disease, but the oxidized yellow of old brass. His body stiffened, his hands and feet unable to move freely. Men, Kiem's mother, sobbed uncontrollably, sending servants to fetch healers from all over the region. But every healer who came shook their heads in dismay. Kiem's pulse was erratic, sometimes racing like a drum, then falling silent as if he were already dead. By night, Kiem's condition worsened. The entire room reeked of a metallic, putrid smell, mixed with the acrid scent of traditional medicine boiling on the stove. Kiem lay awake, eyes wide and staring blankly at the ceiling, bloodshot like two burning coals. Men sat beside him, grasping her son's icy hand. "Kiem, my child, tell mother what's wrong." Kiem mumbled incoherently, his words choked, as if he were burning from the inside. Phan Tich, unable to sit still, paced the room restlessly, his mind a whirlwind of confusion. He suddenly snapped at his wife, "Quiet! Will your crying bring him back to life? Tomorrow, I'll send someone to invite a master monk to perform a ritual." At that moment, Kiem suddenly sat bolt upright, a posture impossible for a person with such a stiff body. He screamed, his body convulsing violently, a terrifying gurgling sound escaping his throat. Men shrieked in terror as instead of blood, a fine golden powder streamed from her son's mouth. The powder shimmered under the oil lamp, beautiful yet utterly grotesque. Kiem coughed violently, a thick cloud of golden dust spewing out, covering the mat. Young Kiem slumped over, taking his last breath, his eyes still wide open. His death was so swift and bizarre that the entire Phan family fell silent. No one dared approach the body, which was stiffening but emitting a heavy, acrid, metallic smell. News of young Kiem's sudden, strange death spread rapidly throughout Dai Bai village, sparking rumors about the odd golden powder found all over his bed. The funeral was hastily arranged the next morning. At the burial hour, Phan Tich's household had to enlist 4 of the strongest men to straighten Kiem's limbs. It took immense effort to place him in the coffin. What was truly bizarre was that as they manipulated his bones, they heard a grating sound, like metal scraping against metal, not the snapping of bone. When it was time to carry the coffin, 8 strong young men grasped the carrying poles, chanting sorrowfully as drums boomed mournfully. All 8 men took a deep breath, mustering their strength to lift the coffin. But the heavy wooden coffin seemed rooted to the ground. One young man, his face red and veins bulging, strained, "Master, it's like carrying a ton of iron. We can't budge it." Phan Tich, his face pale, hurriedly lit incense and mumbled prayers to his ancestors. After a series of desperate pleas, the coffin finally budged. But as it reached the doorway, the flexible bamboo-carrying poles suddenly let out an ear-splitting crack and snapped in half, sending the coffin crashing to the ground with a thud. Cam men fainted on the spot. The coffin bearers recoiled in fear. From a gap in the coffin lid, a trickle of dark yellow liquid seeped out, emitting a putrid, fresh, metallic odor. It took considerable effort, and new ironwood-carrying poles to finally transport Kiem to his resting place. That night, after everything was done, a heavy, sorrowful atmosphere enveloped the Phan family estate. The village night was silent, save for the wind whistling through the tall, upturned roof tiles, creating an eerie, mournful sound. In the dead of night, an old caretaker named Uncle Tam awoke with a start, needing to relieve himself. He tiptoed out to the yard, passing the large, unused furnace, which was now cold and dark. Suddenly, Uncle Tam froze, his skin crawling. He heard a crying sound, a soft, wailing, mournful sob, faint like the wind, yet with the distinct tone of a woman's voice. "Who's there?" Uncle Tam called out, his voice trembling. The crying stopped abruptly, but in its place, a clanging, clanking sound echoed. Terrified, Uncle Tam scrambled back, shouting for Phan Tich. Phan Tich, armed with a stick, mumbled angrily as he ventured out. He shone his flashlight into the dark furnace. "Who dares intrude at night? Show yourself, you scoundrel." There was no reply, only a deadly silence. Phan Tich ordered his servants to go inside and check. 7 trembling servants, clutching lanterns, crept in. Moments later, they emerged, their faces drained of color. One held out a bundle to Phan Tich. It was a mass of tangled, long black hair, matted together with a thick, sticky black resin. The hair reeked of burnt flesh. Phan Tich held the hair, his hands shaking uncontrollably. He recognized the smell, a faint, lingering hint of something familiar amidst the stench of death. He shouted, "Burn this hair, burn it." But as the hair touched the ground, it suddenly coiled up like a snake, slithering towards his feet. Phan Tich screamed in horror, stomping on it frantically until it was crushed to dust. That night, Phan Tich stayed awake, staring out at the dark window, the oppressive darkness enveloping his entire household. 3 days later, Dai Bai village received a strange visitor following Kiem's death. It was a middle-aged man, around 50, thin but dignified. He wore a worn brown tunic and carried a simple cloth satchel, a polished bamboo staff in his hand. The man introduced himself as Lang Tram, a wandering healer searching for medicinal herbs. He stopped at the gate of the Phan family house. He stood in silence for a long time, gazing up at the tall, curving roof tiles shaped like dragon heads. In his eyes, there was not admiration for wealth, but a thick, black aura, shaped like a spearhead, piercing down from the sky onto the house. Just then, Cam men emerged from the house. Seeing a stranger staring intently at her home, she bristled, ready to chase him away. But Lang Tram spoke, his voice deep and resonant. "Madam, there is a gravely ill person in this house, a sickness caused by yin spirits possessing the bones. If not treated quickly, it will affect your grandson." Cam men gasped, startled. Indeed, her grandson, Hoi, young Kiem's son, had fallen ill since his father's death. She quickly invited the man inside. "Master, your words are true. My grandson is burning up, tossing and turning in bed. Please save our family." Lang Tram stepped inside. As he crossed the threshold, he felt a chilling cold envelop him. He was led to Hoi's room. The 5-year-old boy lay curled up on the bed. Lang Tram sat down and placed a hand on the boy's forehead. He immediately recoiled, as if touching a 1,000-year-old iceberg. His surface is hot as fire, but his core is cold to the bone. This is a case of false heat, true cold, as written in ancient medical texts, but at a far more malevolent level. He gently lifted the boy's eyelid. The whites of his eyes had turned a greenish tint with tangled red blood vessels. He turned to Cam men. "Has your grandson been playing anywhere unusual? Did he pick up anything strange?" Cam men replied, "No, master. He only plays around the house, occasionally visiting the workshop to watch the workers. Oh, but one day he brought back a strange baked clay figurine. He said he found it in the garden behind the furnace." Lang Tram nodded. "Show me this clay figurine." Cam men sent a servant to search, but they couldn't find it anywhere. Just then, Hoi suddenly opened his eyes, looking at Lang Tram, and then his mouth twisted into a smile. A hoarse, unnatural voice, not that of a child, rasped, "Don't look for it, it's inside me." Cam men shrieked, covering her mouth. Lang Tram remained calm. He took a packet of white powder from his satchel, mixed it with water, and gently poured it into the boy's mouth. After drinking, Hoi slumped back, breathing heavily. Lang Tram turned to Cam men. This illness cannot be cured by ordinary medicine. It is a karmic affliction from the earth, born of greed. I can only temporarily seal the yin energy so it doesn't spread to his heart. To save him completely, we must find the root cause. Cam men trembled. Root cause? What root cause, master? My family has always lived honestly, accumulating good deeds. Are you sure you've always lived honestly? Lang Tram countered. A wrongful spirit does not come without reason. Karma does not ripen without cause. Some things are buried deep, hidden from the world, but not from the spirits. Cam men flinched, lowering her face to avoid his gaze. She had a vague premonition of something terrible. Phan Tich returned home after a meeting with local officials. Seeing a stranger in his house, a healer no less, he didn't object, hoping the man could save his grandson. He invited Lang Tram to stay for dinner and rest in the guest house. The next morning, Lang Tram asked permission to walk around the foundry to observe its feng shui. Phan Tich reluctantly agreed. The vast workshop contained dozens of furnaces, with molds scattered everywhere. But what truly captivated Lang Tram's attention was the display area in the center. In the most prominent spot stood a red bronze statue of Bodhisattva Quan Am, over 2 meters tall, placed on an intricately carved wooden pedestal. It was a beautiful, gracefully sculpted piece. Yet, as Lang Tram looked closely at its face, he felt something was amiss. The Bodhisattva's eyes were tightly shut. According to sculpting standards, a Bodhisattva statue should always be depicted with gentle, open eyes, looking down upon sentient beings. But this statue's eyes were firmly closed, the eyelids sealed, as if in slumber. Lang Tram called one of the master craftsmen over. When was this statue cast? Why are its eyes closed? Ah, master, the craftsman stammered. I just finished casting it half a month ago. It's very strange. When we made the wax mold, the eyes were open. The clay mold inside also had open eyes, but when we poured the copper and then broke the mold, the statue's eyes were shut tight, just like this. Lang Tram frowned, stepping closer to the statue. He reached out and touched the cold bronze face. The surface was smooth and cool, but he felt a faint, smoldering heat within, as if hot blood flowed beneath the metallic skin. He pressed his ear to the statue's chest. The surrounding space suddenly fell silent. He heard a very faint, deep sound, a rhythmic, slow, heavy heartbeat. It was like the heartbeat of someone buried alive. Lang Tram recoiled, trembling. He stared intently at the statue. In the dim light of the workshop, he felt as if tears welled up in the statue's eyes, as if a single drop was about to fall. Phan Tich approached, his voice boisterous. Master Lang, what do you think of my statue? It's a masterpiece. I intend to donate it to the temple, to pray for good fortune for our family. Lang Tram turned to look at Phan Tich, his eyes sharp with a hint of anger. Phan Tich, this statue cannot be taken to the temple. It carries no divine energy of the Buddha, but the vengeful energy of a malevolent spirit. If you take it to the temple, I fear disaster will befall that very temple. What nonsense are you speaking? Phan Tich retorted. I poured so much money and effort into this statue. What do you know about copper casting to make such judgments? Lang Tram replied, his voice steely, I may not know copper casting, but I know how to hear the cries of a wronged spirit. Phan Tich's face instantly paled. Wronged spirit? What wronged spirit? There's no such thing here. Lang Tram pointed a finger at the statue. It is inside there and it is watching you. Its eyes are closed, but it sees everything. Phan Tich, terrified, followed Lang Tram's gaze. For a fleeting moment, he imagined the statue shuddering, its closed eyes twitching. He stumbled back, bumping into a mold, and fell to the ground. Get him out! Phan Tich screamed in utter panic. Get him out now. The servants rushed forward, but no one dared lay a hand on Lang Tram. Lang Tram adjusted his satchel, looked at Phan Tich one last time. I will not go far. When you hear the sound of a bell ringing from inside your house, seek me out. I hope it will not be too late then. Lang Tram turned and walked away, leaving behind the closed-eyed Buddha statue and the powerful man trembling in fear. The evening shadows began to creep across the foundry, embracing the cold bronze figures. After Lang Tram left, the atmosphere in the Phan household grew even gloomier. That evening, Hoi began exhibiting strange behaviors again. He no longer lay still but writhed on the bed. His joints emitted cracking sounds. His skin hardened, feeling rough to the touch, like the surface of a copper cauldron. He constantly cried out for water. Cam men sent servants to fetch water. The boy gulped it down greedily, water spilling from the corners of his mouth. But no matter how much he drank, he remained thirsty. He demanded ice water. The family brought him cold ice, which he chewed and gnawed on. In the middle of the night, Hoy's fever peaked. His eyes rolled back, revealing only the whites. Suddenly, he sat bolt upright on the bed, cross-legged, adopting the exact posture of the Buddha statue in the foundry. Cam men, horrified, rushed to embrace her grandson. The boy pushed her hand away with unbelievable strength, sending her sprawling onto the tiled floor. He turned to look at her, opening his mouth to speak. His voice was no longer his own, but distorted, high-pitched, a woman's voice, raspy and chilling. "Phan Tich, why did you imprison me? Why did you burn me?" The room fell silent. Servants huddled in corners, trembling. Phan Tich rushed in, his face drained of color upon hearing that voice. He stopped dead at the doorway, clutching the wooden frame. Hoy, or rather, the entity possessing him, slid off the bed and moved on all fours, crawling. He cackled eerily. "Gold, it's gold here. Buddha's gold, my gold?" Phan Tich recoiled, tripping over the threshold. He stammered, pointing at his grandson. "Why you? What nonsense are you saying? Grab him, tie him up." The male servants, mustering their courage, rushed to restrain the boy. 3 or 4 strong men struggled to pin him to the floor. The boy snarled, scratching at the tiles. Cam men fell to her knees, pleading, "My lord, I beg of you, please spare my family. He's just a child, what sin has he committed? Please have mercy." The boy suddenly stopped struggling, lifting his head to stare intently at Cam men. He whispered, "You are good, but you are weak. Your husband is wicked. The furnace fire hurts so much." After saying that, Hoy shuddered and then fainted. His body immediately became soft and warm again. The next morning, rumors of the Phan family's eldest grandson being possessed by a ghost spread quickly, despite Phan Tich's attempts to cover it up. Shamans and sorcerers from neighboring regions were invited. The sound of bells, wooden fish, and chanting filled the house day and night. But any shaman who entered Hoy's room found their incense sticks extinguished, their wooden fish cracking. As soon as a master began an exorcism spell, they would suddenly vomit blood. All declared that the vengeful energy here was too strong, already a full-blown demonic karma, beyond the intervention of mortals. Phan Tich sat alone in the vast living room, utterly defeated. For the first time in his life, he felt that money and power were meaningless. Lang Tram had not gone far, as he said. He set up a small tent by the edge of the forest, about 2 miles from Dai Bai village, near an abandoned shrine to the local earth god. Every day, he observed the ominous black aura that enveloped the Phan family estate. Knowing he couldn't enter the house through the main door, Lang Tram decided to uncover the roots of the story by talking to the villagers. He eventually went to the tea house at the top of the hill, where copper workers used to gather after work. Here, he found Uncle Tam, the old worker who had heard the crying in the unused furnace. Seeing in Lang Tram someone who seemed to understand and was trustworthy, Uncle Tam opened up after a few cups of rice wine. Lang Tram asked about a worker who had disappeared from Phan Tich's household. Uncle Tam became somber, lowering his voice. "Master, if you ask, I'll tell you. 3 years ago, a young girl named Lai came here to work as a servant. She was born mute, couldn't speak, only made a few sounds. But she was quick, hardworking, and honest. So where is that girl now?" "She disappeared. One evening, she just vanished. The master said she stole a large sum of money and ran off with a boy. But I don't believe it. That girl wouldn't even dare to accidentally pick up a needle and thread. And she was mute. How could such a strange girl just run away and hide?" Lang Tram nodded thoughtfully. "Before she disappeared, did you notice anything unusual?" Uncle Tam paused, his face showing clear fear. "Yes, master. That night the workshop was unusually busy. They were casting a huge copper pot. I saw Lai lingering around the storeroom where the master kept valuable materials. He was shouting at her fiercely. The next morning, she was gone. The only thing we found was that old well in the garden behind the furnace, hastily filled in. The master said the well had dried up, so he filled it to expand the workshop." The information about the old well made Lang Tram's eyes light up. He thanked Uncle Tam and quietly departed. That night, taking advantage of the darkness and the Phan family's lax security, Lang Tram crept into the backyard garden. The garden was overgrown and wild. He followed the wind, using his feng shui compass to pinpoint a location. The compass needle spun wildly as he approached a small, raised mound of earth. The soil here was dark and sooty, different from the rich earth around it. The plants growing on the mound were withered, their yellow leaves hanging down like ghostly wings. Lang Tram knelt, gently digging away the topsoil with his hands. A cold dampness rose from the earth. He dug a little deeper, his fingers brushing against something hard. He pulled it out, brushing away the dirt. Under the faint moonlight, glinting dully, was an old, tarnished silver hairpin. It was bent and broken at one end. As Lang Tram held it, he heard a faint, desperate whimpering. He clenched the hairpin in his hand, whispering, "Young girl, if your injustice reaches the heavens, I will help you bring the truth to light." Suddenly, the nearby brush rustled. A dark shadow darted quickly towards Phan Tich's house. Lang Tram knew the vengeful spirit was beginning to act powerfully. He quickly gathered his tools, silently retreating into the night. From the day Hoi fell ill, Cam Men hadn't had a single good night's sleep. Every night she tossed and turned, and when she did doze off, horrifying images appeared. But tonight, the dream was clearer and more real than ever. In her dream, she found herself standing in a vast sea of fire, the stifling heat washing over her face. In the midst of the flames, a woman appeared. She wore ragged, scorched clothes, revealing patches of black, cracked skin. The woman's face was indistinct, covered by her tangled hair, but her eyes blazed like fire. Cam Men wanted to run, but her feet were rooted to the ground. The woman advanced steadily, the fire receding as she walked. She didn't speak, for she was mute, but Cam Men heard a piercing shriek echoing in her mind. The woman raised a skeletal, blackened hand, pointing directly at Cam Men's face. Then she lunged, her charred hand gripping Cam Men's throat. Cam Men woke with a start, sweat drenching her. She instinctively touched her throat, feeling a stinging pain. She quickly lit an oil lamp and looked in the mirror. Clearly visible on her neck was a purple bruise, 2 distinct handprints with deeply indented fingerprints. The most terrifying thing was that the marks were too small, with long, slender fingers, the hands of a woman. Cam Men screamed, her cries echoing through the house, waking everyone. Phan Tich rushed in to find his wife huddled in a corner, trembling. He saw the bruise on her neck. His face went pale, but he tried to compose himself. "You're just having nightmares again, scratching your own neck? There are no ghosts." Cam Men sobbed. "No, it wasn't me, it was Lai. She came in my dream, she choked me. What did you do to her? Tell me the truth." Phan Tich's face darkened. He slapped his wife hard. "Shut up, there's no lie here. She ran off 3 years ago, don't talk nonsense. What will people think?" Cam Men collapsed into tears, but in her heart, suspicion had turned into absolute terror. She looked at her husband, the man whose pillow she had shared for so many years, now seeming strange and terrifying. Phan Tich himself was visibly deteriorating. His eye sockets were deeply sunken, his skin sallow. He trembled constantly. He often mumbled to himself, pacing his locked study. Once, Cam Men pressed her ear to the door and overheard him counting. 1 ingot, 2 ingots, 10 ingots. Enough, nothing's missing, no one can take my gold. He was counting gold ingots, but what gold ingots? All the household's finances, ledgers, and property were under her control. The family's sudden wealth 3 years ago coincided with the contract to cast the Buddha statue for the provincial temple. All these fragmented events coalesced in her mind. Lang Tram stood outside the fence, looking at the still-lit window of Phan Tich's study. He knew the greedy demon in Phan Tich's heart was awakening, and that was when inner demons would lead to the swiftest retribution. Within the Phan family compound, a wall separated the luxurious living quarters from the noisy foundry workshop. This wall had been rebuilt 3 years ago, around the time Phan Tich made a fortune and expanded his estate. But recently, the servants in the house began whispering about strange occurrences at this wall. On moonless nights, when darkness enveloped everything, they heard groaning sounds emanating from the wall. The groans were faint, like insects, yet carried a mournful and sorrowful tone. Tonight was the end of the month, the sky as dark as ink. Cam Men, unable to sleep due to the tormenting nightmares, went out to the yard for some fresh air. As she passed the wall, she suddenly stopped dead. The lantern in her hand almost dropped. She saw the white wall was stained with dark, damp patches. She approached, touching it, then brought her hand to her nose. It wasn't the smell of damp plaster or mildew. It was the pungent, metallic odor of blood mixed with rust. The wall was bleeding. The dripping sounds echoed faintly from tiny cracks in the mortar, trailing down to the base of the wall. Cam Men gasped, dropping her lantern. Just then Lang Tram emerged from the shadows behind her. Cam Men shrieked, her heart leaping. Lang Tram calmly gestured for silence. "Madam, calm yourself, let me help you." Lang Tram knelt, taking a small knife from his satchel. He scraped vigorously at the outer plaster. The plaster peeled away, revealing the bricks beneath. They were not ordinary red bricks. These bricks, composing the wall, were dark, sooty, and rough-surfaced. Lang Tram turned to Cam Men, his voice grave. "Do you know what kind of bricks these are? These are bricks taken from the walls of the old furnace. These bricks have witnessed too much burning, absorbed too much fire energy and evil energy. Your husband used these very bricks from the old furnace to build this wall, separating his family from the place of his sin." Cam Men trembled. The old furnace from back then, could it be the place where Lai was burned? Lang Tram nodded. The furnace fire used to melt copper, actually melted something else or someone else. These bricks have been cursed by death. Now, as the evil energy reaches its peak, they weep tears of vengeful blood. Cam Men's hands and feet trembled. Suddenly, a deranged laugh erupted. Phan Tich rushed out, holding a large wooden staff. He saw his wife and Lang Tram standing before the bleeding wall, his eyes bloodshot and raging. "It's you again, old fraud. You dare come into my house at night, I'll beat you to death." Phan Tich swung the staff and lunged, but Lang Tram merely sidestepped, gently tapping Phan Tich's wrist. The staff clattered to the ground. Phan Tich staggered, his face distorted by anger, reeking of alcohol. He pointed a finger at Lang Tram, then turned to look at the blood-stained wall. Instead of fear, he burst into a crazed, maniacal laughter. "Crying? What are you crying about? I gave you a good place here. I should have crushed you and thrown you in the river." Cam Men rushed to Phan Tich, pleading, "Husband, what did you do to Lai? Please spare our family, Hoy is dying." Phan Tich roughly pushed his wife away. "Shut up, what do women know? I did everything for this family, for the Phan family's wealth. What's one dead mute girl? She died so you could all live in luxury." Phan Tich's confession, born of drink and madness, struck Cam Men like a bucket of cold water. Lang Tram looked at Phan Tich, his eyes no longer compassionate, but filled with the cold resolve of one who executes justice. "You have confessed your crime. For this evidence, you must pay the full price, not 1 cent less." As soon as he finished speaking, the Buddha statue in the main hall suddenly trembled violently. Thick, crimson blood oozed out, emitting a putrid stench. From inside the wall, the mournful crying intensified, growing louder and louder, like the wailing of 1,000 wronged souls demanding retribution. Leaving the Phan household in the dead of night, Lang Tram did not return to his tent immediately. He went straight to the end of the village, where the dilapidated huts of old, retired craftsmen stood. He sought out old Bayen, a former master craftsman who had once been Phan Tich's right-hand man but had been fired. The damp, thatched house smelled heavily of traditional herbs. Old Bayen lay paralyzed on a bamboo cot, his body emaciated, his eyes closed. Old Bayen's son, seeing Lang Tram, was overjoyed and quickly offered him water. Lang Tram did not drink. He went straight to the sickbed. He noticed old Bayen's forehead was sallow, but there was a faint red glow at the philtrum. This was a sign of reflected light, meaning the sick man was about to pass away, but might have a final moment of clarity to speak his last words. He took a silver needle from his satchel and inserted it into the 100 meetings acupoint on old Bayen's crown. A moment later, old Bayen slowly opened his eyes. His bloodshot eyes suddenly became remarkably clear and keen. He looked at Lang Tram, then towards the window of the Phan family house, his lips moving. Lang Tram leaned close to old Bayen's mouth. "Old man, do you have any injustice, any secret you haven't told? Speak it now, so your soul can find peace and return to your ancestors." Old Bayen whispered, his voice weak and trembling, "Is Phan Tich's house in trouble?" "Yes," Lang Tram confirmed. "His eldest son died and his grandson is in critical condition. You know the reason, don't you?" Tears streamed down old Bayen's face. He struggled for breath, his trembling hand reaching out. "A terrible, heinous crime, master. 3 years ago, Phan Tich received a contract to cast a Buddha statue for a large temple. He was greedy. He accepted large amounts of gold from villagers and devotees, but then he. Old Bayen paused, gasping for air, his emaciated chest heaving. Lang Tram gently stroked his back, patiently waiting. That day, when casting the copper pot, it was very strange. The furnace fire was raging like a mountain, hot enough to melt bricks, but the copper in the crucible wouldn't melt. It just clumped together, black and viscous. We workers were scared, saying it was the Buddha's wrath, but Phan Tich didn't believe it. He became furious, yelling and beating us. How could that copper melt? He listened to a wicked sorcerer. The sorcerer said if he wanted the copper to flow, if he wanted the statue to be successful, there must be a sacrifice. That sacrifice must be the life and fresh blood of the most yin-natured person in the village. That night, Lai, old Bayen choked up here. That night, Lai accidentally saw Phan Tich swapping the gold. He was afraid of being exposed, and since the copper wouldn't melt, he committed that barbaric act. I saw him drag the girl to the furnace. The mute girl couldn't scream, she could only whimper, looking at Phan Tich with eyes red as a demon's, but he showed no mercy. Old Bayen's hand clutched Lang Tram's arm tightly. After that night, the copper flowed freely, red and molten. The statue was cast, but its eyes remained shut. Phan Tich was terrified. He didn't dare take it to the temple. He kept it at home, hoping to hide his crime. The soul of that poor girl, master. Save the villagers, don't let him harm anyone else. With that, old Bayen suddenly arched his back, pointing a finger directly towards the Phan family estate, which was enveloped in darkness. His arm remained outstretched in an accusing gesture. His eyes rolled back, he let out a final gasp, and then collapsed onto the cot, breathless. While Lang Tram witnessed old Bayen's final moments, the situation at the Phan household devolved into chaos. Hoi, after a day of lying still, suddenly woke up in the middle of the night. His face was no longer vacant but wide-eyed and bright. He sat bolt upright, his joints cracking loudly. He stepped off the bed, his feet touching the cold, tiled floor, but he didn't flinch. Nanny Noi, dozing nearby, woke with a start. "Young Master Hoi, where are you going? Come back inside." Hoi turned, and Nanny Noi shrieked, falling backward. The boy's face was distorted, his mouth twisted, one eye noticeably out of alignment. He raised a hand and gently flicked his wrist. Nanny Noi was thrown several feet, hitting her head against a wooden pillar and collapsing unconscious. Cam Men and Phan Tich, hearing the commotion, rushed out to find their grandson walking stiffly towards the furnace. "Stop him," Phan Tich screamed. "Hold him, don't let him go." Servants carrying torches and sticks rushed to surround the boy, but the 5-year-old suddenly possessed immense strength. He shoved away the strong men trying to restrain him. The boy reached the largest furnace. He quickly climbed onto the tall, curved rim, standing on the edge, looking down into the deep, dark pit. Cam Men cried out, falling to her knees, "Hoi, my child, come down, don't jump." Hoi didn't look at her. He looked down into the bottom of the furnace and smiled. "Lai said it's warm down here. She's waiting for me. She's cold. I'll go down to warm her up." With that, he closed his eyes and let himself fall into the furnace opening. Just then, a shadowy figure moved swiftly. Lang Tram appeared in the nick of time. He leaped into the air, grabbing the boy's ankle. The boy's weight pulled heavily on Lang Tram's arm. He felt as if he were holding a massive stone. Looking down into the dark furnace, he saw a horrifying sight. A dark, shapeless figure of a long-haired woman was tightly grasping the boy's other leg. The dark figure's eyes glowed crimson, staring directly at Lang Tram. "Let go!" it shrieked. Lang Tram yelled, "No!" He channeled his inner energy into his palm, launching a silver needle that embedded itself firmly in the forehead of the dark figure. The dark figure shrieked an ear-piercing sound, then dissolved into a cloud of black smoke. Both Lang Tram and Hoi tumbled onto the sooty floor. Hoi lay unconscious. Lang Tram quickly checked his pulse, then pressed on the Renjung acupoint. The boy coughed violently, vomiting a pool of black liquid. He opened his eyes, looking around. "Grandma, I'm scared, I'm cold." Cam Men rushed to embrace her grandson, crying uncontrollably. Phan Tich stood, staring at Lang Tram, his face no longer showing aggression, but the utter terror of someone who had just seen the gates of hell open. On the 30th of Tet, Lunar New Year's Eve, Dai Bai village was bustling with preparations for the new year. Yet at the Phan family estate, the atmosphere was grim and deathly. The main gate was tightly shut. Inside, a solitary figure paced. The servants had either quit or fled to their hometowns, leaving only Phan Tich, his wife, Hoi, and a trusted few. Phan Tich locked himself in the ancestral shrine. He lit candles, brightly illuminating the altar, laden with ancestral offerings, rice cakes, and tea. In his eyes, the space began to warp. As he reached for a slice of pork sausage, it suddenly turned into a handful of foul-smelling ash. He picked up a cup of wine, the liquid in the cup turned a horrifying red, bubbling. Phan Tich screamed, overturning the offerings. "Who is harming me? Show yourselves." No one answered, only the wind whistling through the cracks in the door like mocking laughter. He turned to look at the massive iron safe in the corner of the room. That was where he hid all his wealth, the gold ingots he had accumulated his entire life, even the gold he had illicitly taken from the Buddha statue project. The old man ran over, his hands trembling as he spun the combination. The heavy iron safe door creaked open, revealing stacks of gold ingots. Phan Tich laughed maniacally, taking an ingot and bringing it to his face. "My gold, no one can take it." His smile froze. The gold ingot in his hand suddenly grew scorching hot, transforming from golden yellow to the dull red of molten copper slag. His hand, badly burned, shriveled and smoked. He screamed in agony, dropping the ingot to the ground. He looked back into the safe. All the gold inside had turned into red, glowing charcoal. The hot slag seemed to possess a wicked life of its own, rolling out of the safe and towards his feet. Phan Tich stumbled backward, tripping over a bamboo mat on the floor. "Fire! Fire! The house is on fire!" he screamed, rushing out of the ancestral shrine and down to the living room. Cam Men was huddled in a corner of the house, clutching Hoi. Seeing her husband rush in with his scorched hands, she shrieked in terror. Phan Tich looked at the bronze Buddha statue placed in the center of the room. In his hallucination, it was no longer a Buddha statue. It was Lai standing there, her face charred black, her body twisted. "You're dead! I killed you!" Phan Tich roared wildly, grabbing a large bronze candlestick from the table and throwing it with all his might at the statue. The candlestick struck the statue, emitting a resonating clang that echoed endlessly, piercing Phan Tich's mind. He clutched his head, writhing on the floor, wailing miserably. Lang Tram stood silently at the main door, watching the chaotic scene, and gently shook his head. The moment of transition between the old and new year was approaching, and with it, the ripening of karma. The vengeful spirit no longer hid in the shadows. It was now manifesting directly in the mind of its tormentor. On the morning of the first day of Tet, the village was chillingly quiet. Lang Tram walked towards the Phan family house. He carried a pickaxe and a large mirror. Cam Men opened the door, looking haggard like a walking corpse. "Master, what are you doing?" Lang Tram placed the pickaxe on the ground. "It's time to end this. We must bring her up, clear her name, and then perhaps your grandson can live." Phan Tich, now utterly exhausted, struggled to sit up, his eyes still bloodshot. You dare dig up my house. I dare any man to lay a hand on this land." But this time, Cam Men was no longer afraid. She looked at her husband with both sorrow and resentment. She turned to Lang Tram. "Master, please do what you must. I give you permission." Under Lang Tram's direction and with Cam Men's consent, relatives and family members were called to help with the digging. The first blow of the pickaxe struck the ground, hard as stone. It took immense effort to break through the compacted topsoil. The deeper they dug, the more a putrid stench rose. At a depth of about 3 meters, the pickaxe struck something hard. Lang Tram signaled to stop. He jumped into the pit, using his hands to clear away the black, muddy earth. A skeleton soon emerged, but it was not an ordinary white skeleton. The bones were black and sooty, many broken into fragments. More horrifying still, wrapped around the skeleton were thick bronze chains, the size of fingers. The perpetrator had chained the victim before throwing her into the well. Cam Men stood at the edge of the pit, looking down, her limbs trembling. She saw something on the skeleton's slender finger. The ring, she cried. Lang Tram carefully removed a tarnished jade ring, still clinging to the bone, from the slender finger and handed it to Cam Men. Cam Men, trembling, took it and wiped it clean. The jade ring revealed a tiny, engraved character. "Men!" Cam Men burst into tears, collapsing to her knees. It's Lai, this ring. I gave it to her the day she started working here to reward her honesty. I even had my name engraved on it so she'd remember that this family loved her. How could you be so cruel?" She turned to look at Phan Tich. "You are a beast. You killed her and chained her. You buried her under burning coal. Oh, you." Phan Tich looked at the ring, his face drained of all color. He backed away, trying to flee. He stammered incoherently, not me, she saw it. A chilling wind rushed up from the burial pit. In the wind, people heard the clanking of chains and the maniacal laughter of a woman, echoing through the desolate garden, carrying with it a cloud of black, sooty dust that obscured a corner of the sky. The chained, black skeleton seemed to writhe. Phan Tich could no longer stand. He slumped to the ground like a withered leaf. The truth had been exposed, stark and undeniable, in the light of day. Cam Men looked steadily at Lang Tram, her eyes filled with both pain and a strange clarity. She moved closer, her voice trembling. "Tell me, Master, why? What was our family lacking that he had to kill and conceal?" Phan Tich now lifted his head, his face a mask of despair. He looked down at the dry skeleton in the pit, then at Lang Tram. He knew he could no longer deny it. He began to recount, his voice broken and choked with sobs. It was because of greed. 3 years ago, I received the contract to cast the Buddha statue for the Great Temple. I received a huge amount of gold from the villagers and devotees to gild the statue. Seeing the gleaming, enormous pile of gold in the storeroom, my greed awakened. I thought that a red bronze statue was already precious enough. Why waste real gold? That night, I secretly went into the storeroom to swap the gold with polished brass ingots. I never expected that mute girl, Lai, unable to sleep, would be walking around. She just happened to see me putting the gold into my bag. Phan Tich shuddered as he recounted this part, his teeth chattering. She was trying to babble something, to call for someone. I was afraid of losing my reputation, afraid of being shamed. I grabbed a shovel and hit her head. The blow from the heavens knocked the girl unconscious. And then, at that moment, the copper in the furnace still wouldn't melt. It remained clumped and black. I remembered what that wicked sorcerer had once whispered to me. To cast a divine artifact, if you encounter difficulties, you need a sacrifice to clear the way. In my frenzy of fear and ambition, a cruel idea formed. I dragged the girl to a well next to the furnace. To ensure she wouldn't wake up, I used bronze chains to tie her to a large stone at the bottom of the well. Then, I poured coal and hot slag over her. I filled the well with burning coal and slag. And then the copper in the furnace flowed freely, red and molten. I thought that was it. I thought the gods had approved. Lang Tram looked at Phan Tich with cold eyes. What gods approved of your barbaric act? The copper flowed because her vengeful spirit wanted to take form to seek revenge, not because your ritual was successful. You cast a statue imbued with a soul of hatred and brought it into your own home. You personally nurtured the calamity of your own lineage. Cam Men, hearing this, could not speak a word, only sobbed uncontrollably. In the midst of the profound silence, only the wind whistled through the well opening, like a ghostly sigh. Now that the truth was exposed, Lang Tram demanded that Phan Tich remain confined in his house, repenting, awaiting the day to atone. From that day on, Phan Tich suffered from a strange illness. He constantly heard the sound of bells. At first, it was just faint clinking sounds, like wind chimes. He thought it was the wind, so he had the windows tightly sealed. But the bell sounds did not stop. Gradually, the bells grew louder, deeper, and more resonant. The sound of a large temple bell, the kind heard in grand temples and ceremonial halls, now rang directly in his head. Every time a bell tolled, his head throbbed as if being struck by a hammer. Phan Tich clutched his head, writhing on the floor, his hands clamped over his ears, but it was useless. The sound pierced through his flesh, directly affecting his brain. "Stop it! It hurts too much," he screamed in despair. His family members, standing outside, heard his desperate cries but dared not enter, for Lang Tram had warned no one was to disturb him. This was karma collecting its debt. In his agony, Phan Tich saw horrifying hallucinations. He saw the gold ingots in his safe transform into numerous bells, floating and spinning around him. They all vibrated furiously, their resonance creating a monstrous wave of sound that compressed his chest, making it hard to breathe. He remembered the words of the ancients: temple wealth is karmic debt. He had stolen the Buddha's gold, used the innocent's blood and bones to cast a statue for fame. Now, the sound of the Buddha's bell, originally a voice of salvation, had become his death sentence, tormenting his mind. Cam Men woke from her nightmare. Her husband's miserable cries were heartbreaking, but she knew she couldn't intervene. She could only kneel before the ancestral altar, chanting sutras and prayers. But every time she struck the wooden fish, the sound of the bells in Phan Tich's head drowned it out, driving him further into madness. Lang Tram sat in meditation in the outer room, eyes closed, hands clasped, listening to the echoing bell. He knew it was the sound of the wronged spirits, imprisoned in the tainted gold, demanding release. While Phan Tich wrestled with the demonic bells, in the next room, Hoy's condition took a turn for the worse. The skin on his body began to peel off in large flakes, but the new skin beneath was not blood or red flesh. It was a layer of yellowish-gray, hard, and cold material. Cam Men, trembling, reached out to touch her grandson's arm. The sensation transmitted to her hand was rough and coarse. She pressed lightly, but it felt not like elastic flesh, but like a small fingernail scratching against a bronze statue. "Hoi, hoi, what's happening to you?" Hoi lay on the bed, his breathing becoming weak and shallow. His chest heaved with difficulty as the hardened bronze-like skin tightened around his body, constricting his breathing. He no longer cried out in pain. His sensory nerves seemed paralyzed. Lang Tram entered, looking at the scene, and let out a long sigh. He pulled up the boy's shirt. The yellowish-gray layer had spread all the way to his chest. Only a small area around his heart remained normal, pinkish flesh. He turned to Cam Men, his voice somber. "The spirit has entered his bones and marrow. It wants to transform him into a living bronze person to replace the Buddha statue that was swapped years ago. The vein has solidified, the tomb pit has been given life. If this transformation reaches his heart, the boy will truly die and become a bronze statue." Cam Men fell to her knees. "Master, please, I beg you, tell me what to do. I'll do anything, even sacrifice my life for my grandson, I will accept it." Lang Tram helped her up. "Wrong has a head, debt has a master. To save the child, there is only one way: resolve the injustice of the wronged spirit and restore purity to the statue. And most importantly, the one who committed the evil act must truly repent and accept punishment." He pointed towards the foundry where Phan Tich was imprisoned. "The new year is almost here. Prepare an altar immediately in the main hall before that closed-eyed Buddha statue. Tonight, we will confront the wronged spirit directly and seek reconciliation." Cam Men, in tears, immediately sent people to prepare and to bring out all the gold Phan Tich had hidden, placing it on the altar. She wanted to return everything, keeping nothing, hoping only to save her innocent grandson's life. That night, the wind howled ominously. The space was eerily silent. In the Phan family's main hall, an altar was set up, thick with incense smoke. The red bronze Bodhisattva Quan Am statue, with its tightly shut eyes, was placed at the center. Before the statue was Lai's spirit tablet, hastily written on paper. Lang Tram, clad in a gray robe, holding a spiritual sword, stood before the altar. Cam Men and Hoi stood to his left. Phan Tich, disheveled like a soulless corpse, was supported by two servants, sitting to the right. Lang Tram began the ritual incantation, his voice deep and echoing. "O wronged spirit, lurking in the shadows, hear the call of the bell and come to this sacred place." As soon as he finished speaking, a chilling gust of wind blew from nowhere. The entire house trembled. Creaking sounds emanated from the massive ironwood pillars and from within the wall. The haunting cry echoed again, "Give it back to me, give it back to me." Phan Tich flinched. Cam Men tightly hugged Hoi, muttering prayers. Lang Tram commanded loudly, "Wronged spirit, do not act rashly. The perpetrator is here now. The family patriarch has brought forth his ill-gotten wealth to atone. Please let go of your hatred and let this innocent child live." The crying stopped abruptly. But then a terrifying sight. From the closed eyes of the statue, two streams of red liquid oozed out. It was blood. The drops of blood flowed down the statue's cheeks, dripping onto the bronze lotus base with a tong-tong sound. A woman's voice, not from thin air but from within the statue's chest, cried out, "Gold is blood, bronze is life, pay with your life." Phan Tich, who had been slumping by the table, suddenly shot up as if dragged by an unseen force. He ran straight to the statue, falling to his knees and pleading, Lie, I'll return everything to you. All the gold, I'll return it all." Lang Tram saw a thick wave of murderous aura rising from the statue. He knew the vengeful spirit was transforming into a malevolent demon. He bit his finger, drawing a blood talisman and quickly pressing it onto Hoi's throat to stabilize his heart. Then he turned to Phan Tich. "The karma you have created is too heavy. Gold and jewels cannot atone for it. Only the fire of true repentance from the depths of your heart can partially resolve it." As soon as he finished speaking, Phan Tich suddenly stood up, his eyes vacant and soulless. He turned and ran straight towards the foundry. His movements were swift and decisive. "Husband," Cam Men shrieked in despair, running after him, but an invisible force held her back. Lang Tram held her shoulder. "Don't chase him. That is the path he is forced to take." Phan Tich's laughter echoed throughout the foundry. He rushed out of the main house with terrifying speed, not at all like a middle-aged, frail man. His clothes billowed on the tiled yard under the faint moonlight. Cam Men tried to follow, but her feet were rooted. She could only stare as her husband vanished into the darkness of the foundry. Lang Tram stood still, holding his spiritual sword pointed at the sky, muttering incantations to prevent the evil energy from overflowing and harming others. Inside the foundry, Phan Tich, like a madman, grabbed a shovel and furiously shoveled coal and black slag into the furnace. His movements were swift, powerful, and frenzied. The furnace, long extinguished, strangely caught fire the moment the coal hit its core. A fierce, greenish-blue flame erupted. The fire required no kindling, no wind. It blazed from the hatred and dark fragments in the wicked man's mind. Phan Tich cackled maniacally. He ran back to the secret alcove beneath the red altar, where he had secretly hidden the last remaining gold ingots that Kiem men hadn't found to place on the altar. He threw them all into the roaring flames. "I'm paying it all back to you. You wanted gold, here, eat it all." The flames in the furnace leaped high, greedily consuming the gold ingots, melting them into glistening streams of metal. The heat radiating from it was terrifying. The air in the foundry became suffocating. Suddenly, Phan Tich stopped. He stared intently at the glowing red flames. In his eyes, the fire was no longer fire. It transformed into the image of Lai. She was reaching out, beckoning him. Come here to me. It's warm down here, and there's so much gold." Phan Tich took a dazed step closer to the furnace mouth. His face softened. There was no more fear, but instead a serene, satisfied expression. "Lai, I'm coming. I'm bringing gold down to you." He climbed onto the rim of the furnace. His hands and feet began to burn, but he seemed to feel no pain. From the main house, Lang Tram saw a towering column of fire erupt. He shouted, "Karma has been fulfilled." As soon as he finished speaking, Phan Tich threw himself into the blazing furnace. A chilling, guttural scream echoed, resonating through the Phan family estate one last time, brightly illuminating that corner of Dai Bai village, then abruptly shrinking, swirling deep within, as if swallowed by an invisible force. Kiem men fainted in the arms of the old nanny. The moment Phan Tich was consumed by the flames, the atmosphere in the house suddenly changed. The stifling oppression vanished, replaced by a cool, fresh breeze carrying the faint scent of medicinal herbs. On the bamboo cot, Hoi, who had been lying motionless, suddenly sat up. No longer stiff and rigid, his body began to convulse violently, his chest heaving as if about to explode. Lang Tram quickly rushed to him, pressing on his meridians. "Vomit it out, vomit it all out." Hoi opened his mouth as wide as possible, and a gush of thick, black liquid, like tar, poured out. Mixed within were tiny, glistening flakes of copper. After vomiting out all the noxious energy, Hoi collapsed back onto the bed, gasping for breath. The strange thing was, the hard, yellowish-gray bronze skin that had covered his body now peeled off in flakes, like dried fish scales. As that bizarre layer came off, the child's tender, pink flesh was revealed, and blood began to circulate normally again. The boy opened his eyes, clear and bright, and looked at his unconscious grandmother, whimpering, "Grandma, I'm hungry." At that moment, an ear-splitting crack echoed from the Buddha altar. Everyone turned, horrified. The red bronze bodhisattva Quan Am statue, once majestic and smooth, now had a massive crack running from its crown down to its lotus base. From the crack, black smoke billowed out, thick and acrid. And the most terrifying thing happened. The closed eyes of the statue, the eyes that had haunted Lang Tram and the entire family, slowly opened. The two bronze eyelids separated with a slow creak. But inside, there were no eyes of a Buddha statue, nor empty space. Instead, wide-open eyes stared out, the white sallow, the tiny pupils like black beans, enlarged with fury and resentment. Those were not the eyes of the Buddha. They were the eyes of a demon, the last gaze of Lai before she was buried alive. The Buddha statue trembled violently, then shattered, collapsing to the tiled floor, crumbling into pieces. Amidst the debris, there was no sign of a statue, only a piece of black charcoal, shaped like a heart, still faintly pulsating a few times before turning to dust. Lang Tram breathed a sigh of relief, letting his spiritual sword drop. The evil energy has dissipated. Blood must be paid with blood. The wronged soul of that girl has been freed from its bronze prison. He lifted young Hoi and placed him in Kiem Men's arms. The moment she regained consciousness, Kiem Men embraced her grandson, tears streaming down her face. She looked at the pile of shattered bronze in the middle of the room, then at the desolate foundry outside. Her heart ached as if cut, yet she also felt a sense of relief. The price paid was too high, but at least the last bloodline of the Phan family was still preserved. Phan Tich's funeral was quiet and desolate, without gongs, drums, or banners. Dai Bai village remained in shock over the charcoal-burnt death of the foundry master. They whispered among themselves about karma and immediate retribution. Cam Men seemed to age decades overnight, her hair turning white. With slumped shoulders, she gathered all of Phan Tich's ashes. She dared not bury them, believing that the family lineage was now defiled and its feng shui poisoned. Instead, she sent them to a remote mountain temple where monks chanted daily prayers for his soul. After selling off everything, Cam Men sold all the family assets: the foundry, the house, the valuable land plots. She used all the money, along with the remaining gold from the fire, to do one last thing. She commissioned the best sculptors in the neighboring village to cast another Buddha Bodhisattva Kwan Am statue. This time, the statue was cast from pure, unadulterated bronze, without any gold, silver, or jewels. Only the sincere repentance of those who remained. The day the statue was brought to the temple, it rained heavily. Cam Men knelt in the temple courtyard, letting the rainwater soak her, prostrating herself in apology before the triple gem. She prayed for the compassionate Buddha to forgive the souls of her husband and son, and for the unfortunate girl named Lai. Lang Tram stood under the eaves, watching the frail, emaciated woman, his heart filled with sorrow. He approached, offering her his umbrella, and then mused to himself, "What needed to be done is done. The land's energy is depleted. Though the vengeful spirit has dissipated, the lingering evil energy is still heavy. The old and young who stay here long will suffer illness and unease. It is best to take your grandson to another place, a pure and vibrant place, to live out the rest of your lives." Cam Men, her eyes swollen from crying, looked at him and nodded, thanking him for saving her grandson and the sinful souls of her family. "I will go, and I will never return to this sorrowful land." The next morning, people saw Cam Men holding Hoi's hand, carrying a small satchel, quietly leaving the village. She didn't look back at the grand house that had once been the pride of her entire lineage. As the shadows of the grandmother and grandson disappeared behind the bamboo hedge, the temple bell on the hill suddenly rang. The bell echoed, deep and mournful, spreading throughout the quiet morning air. It was no longer the death knell, the haunting chime Phan Tich had heard. It was a farewell bell, a closing chime that brought a bloody tragedy to an end. Hoi, beside his grandmother, occasionally turned his head to look back at the old house, a naive, vacant smile on his face. He had been saved, but the trauma of those days of possession had taken away his rational soul. He would forever remain a child of 3. 10 years passed. Dai Bai village had transformed. The old dirt roads were now paved with smooth concrete. New foundries sprang up everywhere, the ceaseless clang of hammers and machines filling the village. But one corner of the village remained desolate and forgotten. Lang Tram had occasion to pass through the old land again. He stopped before an overgrown mound, covered in weeds taller than a man. The moss-covered walls peeked out from behind dense, wild trees. The majestic ironwood gate from years ago was now just a solitary, gray, rickety stone pillar. This was the Phan family estate, once prominent throughout the region. He stepped inside, feeling the lingering coldness. The main house was now just a pile of bricks. The workshop in the back had completely collapsed, leaving only the enormous, pitch-black furnace, like the mouth of death itself. A villager walking by saw him lingering and called out, "Old man, hurry, get out of there. That land is cursed, no one dares go near it." Lang Tram turned and smiled. "Cursed? Why cursed, my friend? This land is vast and abandoned, what a waste." The villager lowered his voice. "I don't know why, but this place belonged to Phan Tich, you see. They say he killed someone to cast a statue and got his karma, burned to death. Now every night they say you can see the ghost of a man, engulfed in flames, wandering around that old furnace. He paces back and forth, mumbling, 1 ingot, 2 ingots. My gold? Give me more?" Lang Tram nodded, his eyes filled with a deep sadness. The vengeful spirit of the living can sometimes be more stubborn than that of the dead. Phan Tich, though dead, his obsession with gold and his sins still bound his soul to this place, to suffer eternal torment in an invisible fire. He asked about Cam Men and Hoi. The villager sighed. "The old woman died 3 years ago, I heard, in a distant temple up in the mountains, alone. As for that Hoi boy," he pointed to a small, isolated shack at the edge of the property. "After his grandmother died, no relatives would take him in. The temple sent him back here, living like that. Whatever people give him, he eats." Lang Tram walked closer to the shack. A young man, perhaps 15 or 16, sat on the ground, idly playing with pebbles. His clothes were ragged and dirty, but his eyes were clear and innocent. This was Hoy, the only direct heir of the once prestigious Phan family. He picked up a pebble, held it out, and grinned vacantly. "Gold, isn't it pretty?" Lang Tram knelt, stroking the young man's head. He took a piece of rice cake from his satchel and offered it to him. Hoy took it and ate it greedily, unaware that the man before him was his savior from years ago. "Eat, my child, eat your fill." Lang Tram looked at the emaciated boy. The boy lived, but the sane part of his being had departed on that fateful night. The Phan family lineage had truly ended. There was no one left to carry on the name, no one remembered its former glory. Only a chilling tale of karma, a lesson for all. Lang Tram stood up and walked towards the corner of the garden where the old well had been re-excavated years ago. He lit 3 sticks of incense, placing them in the cold earth. The fragrant smoke rose, dissipating into the void. Evil karma sown, burdens the whole family. Fleeting wealth forgotten, only cause and effect remain. He mumbled these words, then turned and walked away. His shadowy figure stretched long on the village road, slowly fading into the distance, leaving behind the abandoned house and the vacant laughter of the last survivor of a family's tragedy.